So you're looking to build muscle and you're confused about how much you should be eating, what you should be eating, what to do in the gym, reps, sets, all that sort of stuff. Don't worry, because I'm going to walk through exactly what you need to do to build muscle in this video. And we're going to keep it very, very simple. At the end of this video, I want you to have a clear plan of what you need to go and start working on to get the results you're after. Let's get into it. Do you want to build muscle? Obviously the answer is yes, that's why you're watching this video. The first thing we need to focus on, are you eating enough? Now we start here because one of the main reasons why people struggle to gain weight and muscle mass is because they're not eating enough. This was the case for me when I was younger and I was starting to try and build a bit of muscle mass. I found it very hard to eat enough calories. Now, a lot of people can sit there and they can think it's impossible for them to gain weight, gain muscle, but a lot of the time, one of the big factors is this: they're just not eating enough. If we're not eating enough, what do we need to do? This doesn't mean we need to eat loads and loads and loads and loads and loads. We want to be in a small or slight surplus. So a surplus is where you're taking in more calories than you are expending. So let's say, for example, your maintenance calories were 2,000 calories. So at 2,000 calories, you are holding your weight. A slight surplus is anything above that. So I would say anywhere, probably from like 150-ish calories to 250 is that slight surplus that you want to put yourself in. So that would maybe be 2,150 calories, 2,200. And that's where I would start. And the second thing you want to do is make sure you have control over your food intake, because we need to be consistent with this slight surplus. So we need to have control of our food intake to make sure the consistency is there. To gain control, you can track calories, use food journals, use portion sizes, whatever works for you. But we have to be making sure we're in a slight surplus and eating enough. Once we have accomplished this, we then move on to the next part. Are you eating adequate protein? Now, a lot of people think the more protein you eat, the better muscle mass growth you're going to get. And that's not necessarily true, but we do want to make sure we're eating enough. We don't want to be under eating in protein, because that would not be favorable for adding muscle mass. If we're not eating enough, we want to be hitting anywhere from 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Now, you will be fine at the lower end because you're also going to be in a calorie surplus. So if we're hitting at least this minimum, we're going to be doing well. So for example, just so it makes sense, if you were 150 pounds, 0.8 grams per pound of body weight would be 120 grams of protein each day. So just make sure you sit in and around that number. Once we've made sure we're eating enough protein, we then move on to the next step. Is our training quality good? Obviously, I haven't asked the question, are you weight training? Because I imagine it's a given, so you should be weight training. And I would say as a minimum 3 times a week. However, we need to make sure that our training quality is good. If our training quality is not good, these are the things we need to focus on. We need to make sure the form and execution of our training is good. That's obviously going to come down to performing the movements correctly, safely, moving weight with control. We don't want to be throwing weights around. We're there to control it through a movement, through a range, making sure the range of motion is good, getting a muscle through its lengthened range to its shortened range. Okay, so we're not just doing half reps, we're trying to get as much range as possible. And then we also want to make sure that our intensity is good. Simply put, you need to make sure you are training hard enough. To make this simple, you want to make sure that at the end of every set, you feel like you only have 1 to 2 reps left in the tank, with form still being good. A lot of people just don't train hard enough. If you're not training hard enough, you're not going to create the stimulus that you need to build muscle mass. The training intensity is really important. Now, once we've got our training quality on point, we then move on to the next one. Are we progressing now over time in terms of our training? Are we progressing our training over time? Progressive overload. What that basically means is you're creating this stimulus that your body's going to need to adapt to. Over time, if that stimulus doesn't change, your body won't need to adapt. So we have to continuously be challenging our body and giving it this stimulus that it needs to continue to adapt. How does this look? How do we continue to make sure we're progressing over time? This is going to look like increases in volume over time. Okay, so volume is a combination of reps, weight, and set. The 2 main areas I want you to begin with and start with is reps and weight. Now, to keep this simple, give yourself rep ranges. For example, like an 8 to 12 rep range. Now, the reason why we give ourselves rep ranges is because as we go through our training from week to week, we can try and move through these reps. So maybe one week we've done one set at 10 reps, another set at 8 reps. The following week you do 11 and 9. The following week you do 12 and 12. Once you've maxed out the reps for every set, you can then take the weight up. So then maybe you add 5 pounds or 5 kilograms and you repeat the process again. This continuous progression is what we're looking for over time. Now, you can also look at progressing sets over time as well. This is a little bit more aggressive, so this is something that I would do longer term. Thinking of this more like month to month, for example, rather than week to week, like the reps and the weight. But with sets, you can maybe start doing 8 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. Okay, start there, make sure the training quality is good, make sure we're progressing. Then over time, if you need to add more volume, if you want to progress even further, you can maybe then take these sets up every few weeks or whatever. However you want to do it, there's different ways you can do it. But then you could take each muscle group to 12 sets per week, 14 sets per week, and so on. And you will have a ceiling. You'll find a ceiling in terms of how far you can progress, how far you can push it. But these are just different methods in terms of making sure we're progressing our training over time. Once we've managed to nail that, are we recovering? Recovery is vital. If you are not recovering, you will not progress and you will not adapt, add muscle. There's no point going absolutely crazy in the gym if you can't recover from the amount that you're doing, which is why I always suggest starting with your sets and volume pretty low to make sure you can recover. And it's why you'll also, like I just mentioned, find a ceiling. So you'll eventually find a ceiling of volume where you can no longer recover from it. And then you have a sort of volume range to work within. Now, if we're not recovering too well, these are the things we need to focus on. So we need to focus on volume, which we've just spoken about. We need to focus on sleep. Sleep is huge. We need to make sure we're getting good sleep. Sleep is going to be king when it comes to changing your body. And then nutrition. So nutrition is going to come back up to here. We can adjust the amount of food that we're eating. Maybe now if we need to, or we want to push it a little bit harder, we want to make sure we can still recover while we're doing that, maybe we eat and consume a few more calories. But also looking at stuff like carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are going to play a big part in recovery, in performance in the gym. And carbs are something that I would take advantage of when trying to build muscle mass. We've nailed that. One last step. Are we measuring progress? We need to make sure that we're actually progressing, we're actually building muscle mass. How do we do that? What measures can we use? We've spoken about progressive overload here. We need to monitor this and making sure we are progressing. So make sure you jot down the weights, the reps that you're doing. Follow it up. Make sure you're progressing in the gym. Pictures. Take pictures. Pictures are going to be your best form of measurement for progressions, okay? Because you can simply see yourself changing. Now, building muscle mass is a slow process. It will take time. So, maybe you take pictures every month, every 2 months or whatever. But take pictures because you'll be able to see yourself filling out, getting bigger, adding muscle mass. It will also be a good indicator if there's certain areas that you want to focus on or prioritize. So if you're taking pictures and you're noticing, for example, your shoulders aren't progressing as quickly as your chest, your back, whatever, then you can look and maybe add a bit more volume towards your shoulders. And then weight. I would take your weight for 2 reasons. You want to obviously gauge that we're building muscle mass. Your weight going up over time slowly will be a measure of that. But 2, if your weight is going too quickly and you can combine this with pictures, you might be adding body fat a little bit too quick. When you're in a surplus, you will add some body fat over time. It is a given, that is going to happen. It is what it is. But if you're looking to put yourself in the best scenario for building muscle mass, that's where you want to be. Our rate of weight gain wants to be slow. I would say if you're new to this, you might get away with a bit of a quicker rate, but I would say 1 to 2 pounds per month of your weight going up is a good rate. If it's going quicker than that, and in the pictures we can see we're gaining a bit of body fat, then we maybe want to slow it down and we maybe want to reduce the size of this surplus a touch. So there you have it. The only thing I want to add, which I did forget, on the recovery side of things, also think about cardio. Now, a lot of people will say if you do cardio, it's going to take away from your ability to build muscle. Not necessarily true. If our recovery is taking a hit and we're not recovering too well, actually introducing some cardio, just for general health and recovery purposes, can be quite beneficial. I would keep the amount of cardio you do relatively light and low, just so it doesn't take away from what we're trying to do here, but it definitely can play a part and be helpful. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. If you did find it helpful, please drop the video a like because it helps me. If you haven't subscribed, do go ahead and do so, because I put out loads of videos to help you with your fitness goals. Okay, I'll see you on the next one.